seconds or minutes do you think we are taking to make a snap judgment about someone today? What do you think?
7.
7? Is that 7 minutes or
7
seconds? Yeah. What do you think? Does that sound about right?
I think 2.
2 seconds. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Konnichiwa and welcome to episode 73 of the Leadership Japan series, and I'm your host in Tokyo, Dr. Greg Story, president of Dale Carnegie Training Japan, and much more importantly, you are a student of leadership, highly motivated to be the best in your business field. If you enjoy the program, then you might consider subscribing on iTunes and leaving a review. We would love to hear what you think about the series. How would you like your own access to 102 years of the accumulated wisdom of Dale Carnegie Training? Get our free report, Stop Wasting Money on Training, How to Get the Best Results from Your Training Budget, plus our free white papers, guidebooks, reports, training videos, blogs, newsletters, course information, plus much, much more at japan.dalecarnegie.com. Today we are going to listen to a presentation on how to create a great first impression in sales.
So tonight we have from Australia one of the leading lights in training in Tokyo. You've been in Japan, what, 20-some years? 28 years. He's been with, you have a PhD in what, international relations, political science. He's worked with Japan, Australia, and trade, and then got into the private sector. Has done all kinds of wonderful things, and has been with Dale Carnegie Training for 4 years. President of Dale Carnegie Training. Very lucky to have him here today. Please welcome Dr. Greg Story.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And yes, it is 28 years now that I've been in Japan. I came for 2. So those of you who are new to Japan, be careful. And as Eric mentioned, this is a 3-series sales training exercise. And tonight we begin with rapport. And I've noted here that it's really about determining your initial impression with the buyer. Do you think that we're very quick to judgment today?
Yes.
How many seconds or minutes do you think we are taking to make a snap judgment about someone today? What do you think?
7.
7? Is that 7 minutes or
7
seconds? Yeah. What do you think? Does that sound about right?
I think 2.
2 seconds. Wow, okay.
I think 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? We are very quick to make a snap judgment. Now, are we very slow to unwind that initial judgment, do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we are, aren't we? We're quick to judgment and we're slow to unwind it. So what does that tell us if we're in the sales business?
First impressions are everything.
First impressions are everything. And now, do we leave first impressions to chance, or do we decide we're going to determine that first impression? Which do you think is a better idea?
The latter is the better, the former is the more common.
How many salespeople do you think actually do that?
Not enough.
Not enough. I'm a buyer, by the way, of many services and products. So I'm a very keen observer of how people build a first impression. How do you build a first impression? Just together, in pairs? Discuss that for 1 minute. What do you do? What did you come up with? Shall we hear some of the methods you use? What do you use?
Body language.
What does that mean?
So when you, well, I mean, just appearance in general. Like you don't want to show off that you're a slacker or someone who's not professional, who's who doesn't take care of the. If I see someone who doesn't take care of the clothes that he's wearing, how is he going to take care of me?
Oh, okay. Appearance, yep. What else? What did you come up with over here?
language,
Yeah. What does that mean?
the way you carry your thoughts or what you want to achieve. You need to kind of adjust yourself to the situation and what it is that you want to get from this discussion.
Like what?
Depends on who you're seeing and what is it you want to get from this meeting. You know, if it's, you know, I don't know, generalizing, but if it's a banker or a very old-fashioned type occasion rather than a young company or a young client or young someone who's looking to, you know, a different cues and different way of behavior, just adjusting yourself to the scenario.
Sort of mirroring?
Yeah, yeah.
How about down here? What'd you come up?
Yeah, we also had appearance, and then we spoke about that we'd probably think about what we're going to say. So what's the conversation? How's the conversation going to go? How are we going to approach that?
Similar things, appearance, showing up, being prepared for what the topic of conversation is and having an agenda ready prior to getting into the door. And then taking the first 7 seconds to make sure that they know who you are, they know you're confident about what you're talking about, and they know why you're there. And then moving to a situation where you're trying to elicit information from them to draw them into the conversation, draw them into what area you want to speak about, and make sure that they understand you're listening to them and you're there to help them solve the problem.
Are people preoccupied today?
Yes.
Are the people we're meeting preoccupied today?
Yes.
Yes.
Have they probably come out of a series of meetings or had a series of emails or a whole bunch of things going on that's in here?
Yes.
Are we competing with that?
Yes.
So how we enter that conversation can be very critical, can't it? Especially when there's a lot of competition going on in their head. We talked about appearance, we talked about how we mirror language, get that initial impression going. We know a lot about the people we're meeting today though, don't we, compared to in the past? Now, how do we know about them?
It's easier to learn.
How do we know about them?
LinkedIn, Facebook,
LinkedIn,
anything on
Facebook?
the web page for their business.
Yeah.
Bloomberg.
How many people searched me before tonight? Okay.
I did before you asked, before we asked you to speak to us.
But normally, we can actually get a really good insight into our partner in the meeting that in the past was very, very difficult to do. If you Google me, there's a lot of stuff there. And I'm sure if I Google you, there's probably a lot of stuff there too. Now here's the question though. Do salespeople do that? Do they take the time and do they make the effort to actually check out the company, check out the person, or do they just turn up? What do you think?
Turn up.
Just turn up.
Why do they do that?
Because they're also distracted and time challenged and have all of the other things that are pulling them in different directions that the customer they're meeting does.
And yet, we talked about determining that first impression being such a critical thing, and you gave me 2 seconds, all right, which is a pretty short time frame to get that right. So what it says, though, is the vast majority of salespeople are not well trained, not very professional, sorry,
Self-absorbed.
self-absorbed, yes, winging it. Winging it would have to be the classic. Is this a good idea? No, but this is what happens, right? So if we want to be successful, it's not like we've got to be a genius. We've only got to do a few things and we will stand above the crowd. Instantly. One thing though I'm suggesting is to start with a sales philosophy. I've put up here an idea. Establish your client's best interests. Kokoro Gamai. Now, Kokoro Gamai is a Japanese term. Is anyone here familiar with Kokoro Gamai? If you read kanji, you see the Kokoro is the spirit. Okay? And Gamai is a phonetic change from Kamai. So, in the traditional Japanese arts, in the martial arts, which my background is in martial arts, a kamai would be taking a position when you're ready to fight. It could also be if you're a master of shodo, calligraphy, the master will grind the stone and make the ink by themselves, because that is polishing their spirit and getting ready for the artistic writing they're going to do. They're calming themselves down, they're getting their spirit ready for what they're about to do. If you're a master of ikebana or a master of flower arrangement, you will strip the branch yourself. You will pull off leaves yourself. You will shorten the length yourself rather than having your minions do it, because that is also part of that process of getting ready. And what I'm talking about here is Kokoro Gamai, for me, means what is my intention? What is my starting point? Or in Japanese, my shipatsu-ten, my starting point, my launching point. Is it self-absorbed, as you mentioned before? What's in it for me? How much money is this person going to be worth to me? What's my bonus likely to be if I get a sale here? Is it all around me, me, me? Is that my starting point? Is that my kokoro gamai? Or, as I'm suggesting here, what if your starting point is your client's best interest? So it's the old idea of inside the client's success is my success as a basic concept. Now, in my experience, not very many salespeople have a sales philosophy at all. That's the first thing you notice. They don't have one. And secondly, they rarely have one that actually puts the client at the centre. You might get a lot of, well, in Japanese we say takomai, right? A lot of surface acknowledgement, but the hone, deep down, it's all about what's in it for me. So I think if you're going to be successful in sales and you're going to have a great first impression, a good starting point is to think about your starting point. What's your intention here? What's your mental frame on meeting this person for the first time? Is it all about you, or is it going to be all about them? Depending on your decision, your whole interaction, you said before about the interaction, the vibe in the room and the age and the industry was banking, it's conservative or whatever. Yes, all of that's true, but even more important is your starting point inside you. If you have a very clear idea about what that should be, that will direct. One way or another, that will direct. That will direct which way you go. So, tonight we're going to try and determine value from a buyer's point of view. Not our point of view, what we think is value, but what the buyer thinks is value. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Make buyers eager to talk with us. Now this is particularly challenging when you're selling to Japanese people, I've found. I don't know if other people have had this experience, but I've found that a very typical Japanese scenario in a sales environment, Japanese or English, it doesn't matter, is I'm the salesperson, I come in, I make my pitch, they listen to the pitch, and then they drill it full of holes. You know, they mentally get out the shotgun, break it open, put in 2 pellets, snap it shut, and then it's open season on me, the salesperson. No questions, no digging, just give me the pitch and then I'll tell you what's wrong with everything you just said. So, getting buyers to talk is not, in Japan, such an easy thing. If you turn up and you try to interrogate Japanese buyers, for a start they think there's something wrong here, because they think your job is to talk and their job is to criticise. Who likes that idea? Nobody, right? Who wants to be the talker who's going to get slammed by the buyer? No one likes that. But that's their mental framework. So if that's their starting point, we better have a really good rapport building session first, so we don't go down that track. Because once you go down that track, you're always on the back foot, under assault from the buyer's critique of everything you just said. That's not a position. And you lose control of the whole sales process, which is also a bad, bad scene. And then we're going to talk about establishing immediate, in 2 seconds maybe, credibility. All right, that's where we're going to go with this. Now this is part of a much bigger sales process, and it's very hard to see this in this light on the screen, but
You want to try
planning. If I do, you won't see me, so I'll work through it though. We have planning, I talked about before. We can find out a lot about companies and people before we meet them. Then we go into rapport building, the first stage, which is what we're going to cover tonight. Then the next stage is interest. What are they interested in? This is where we go into the questioning phase. Now, if we don't get this first pass right, we will not even get into the excavation of what they need stage in the second point of determining what is their interest. The third part then is understanding what they need. We then provide our solution, which matches that, which is over here. And motive here is around, have we really clearly understood them and what they want? We may not have found out some concerns. And you've done this yourself. You've been shopping, and someone very kindly, a salesperson said, may I help you? Are you looking for something? And you said, what do you say?
No, thank you. I'm just looking at that.
I'm just looking, no thank you, I'm just browsing. Why? Why do we do that?
We don't want the hard sell.
We want to get rid of them, right? We don't want the salesperson giving us the hard sell. Terrific, right? So there might be something in our presentation which has not fully answered a concern, and in the motive part, we want to get that out. And then finally, the commitment. I mean, there's a whole bunch of debates around, language, closing. Some people don't like the word closing the sale, because it's sort of like ending things. Other people have all these cool words for it. These are semantics. I mean, I'm agnostic about this. I don't particularly care. But you've got to get the end result is a sale, be a commitment to buy. So that's the process, and that is basically where we're going to go on the first two sessions. And we're spending quite a bit of time on the first part. And originally, I said, we could have more than 3. If you wanted to take some of these into more depth, we could do that. So we fixed on 3, so we'll try and get through the whole 3. But tonight we're going to fix on the first one, because if we've only got 2 seconds or 7 seconds or a few seconds to get it right, and it takes a lot of effort to unwind it, boy, we better get that first one right, because if I don't like you and trust you, do I really care about your offer? Do I really care about your pricing? Do I care about your after-sales service? Do I care about your guarantee? Do I care about the scope? Do I care about the breadth of what you're doing? What do you think? Probably not. So everything gets determined in those first few moments. So what can we do around those first few moments is the question.
Are there any differences between men and women in how much time an individual would give a salesperson? Because I tend to think, if I'm not stereotyping, I tend to think a salesperson calls me even if I don't think their pitch is good on the phone, I still agree to meet with them and give them a chance. Or when I meet someone, even if I'm not impressed, I'll still allow them to keep going, whereas I think some of my counterparts would just shut them down.
Okay, what do you think? Is that a man-woman thing, or is that a personality-individual thing? What do you think?
I think it's more of personality. I kind of agree. Like, sometimes maybe some people might not sound so good on the phone, but just sometimes and I can tell by their voice that they're putting the effort into it, and maybe give them that second chance. So.
Okay. Any other takers on the male-female split here? Personally, I think it's probably an individual thing. I don't think I've ever seen anything that I can categorise as gender-based. I tend to do that because I'm a student of sales. I'm fascinated to see other people selling. I want to see what they got. Come on down. I mean, really, I'm always open. Come on and see me. I want to see if they've got something that's working. I want it. So in that sense, I'm a student of sales. I'm open to it. I'm open to it. So this rapport rule is build rapport by talking to people briefly. This is because it's the beginning of the conversation about their interests. Okay, so a lot of salespeople will turn up and start spruiking about themselves, their company, and their product, and they don't really get involved with the client, trying to understand the client. What we're talking about here is not doing that, but actually trying to understand what the client's interested in as a first point of reference. And we have a number of ways of doing that. We start with some pleasantries, which might be What do you think? What would be a pleasantry we'd open? We just arrived. We've arrived in the meeting room or the meetings in the lobby. What would be a typical pleasantry we would use?
In Japan, it's the Meshi exchange.
Well, even before that.
Weather always.
Weather.
Weather? Yeah.
The weather.
What else? Even before the weather, what normally,
You
what
have
do
a
we talk
beautiful
about?
office.
Sorry?
You have a beautiful office.
Even before that.
It's
The very first, what's probably the very first thing you're going to say?
Hello. Greeting. Hello.
Sorry?
A greeting. It's not a greeting.
Hello.
Yeah.
And what will we say after that normally?
How are you?
How are you? What else will we say?
How's business? You busy?
How's business? You busy? Yeah, what else?
How's your day?
How's your day? Thank you for seeing me.
Yeah.
Right? We thank them for the time. Thank you for your time. Hello, thank you for seeing me. They're the sort of pleasantries. And as Eric said, then often we go into, did you come far? Have you travelled far to see us, you know? Where's your office? About the weather. Sort of typical Japanese small talk, which is very good because they've got a custom here of not getting straight into it. Try and build up a bit of rapport. You know, you suss you out a little bit, get a sense of who you are before they decide they want to do business with you as a counterpart, which makes a lot of sense. So pleasantries will be very, very short. Now, what we're talking about here is 3 methodologies of getting that rapport build through what we say. The first one are attention getters. Now, I said before, or I asked you before, are we really preoccupied? Are we all super busy? And you said, yes, we are. And that's true, we're all full. The brain is just full, bursting. And we turn up. Now, you've got to cut through. You've got to cut through all of that distraction and get inside their head with your message. So you've got to get their attention. And you need a methodology for getting their attention. That's what we're going to cover in a moment. We're also going to deal with credibility statements. This is building that trust. Why it's worthwhile for them to talk to you and why it's worthwhile for them to do business with you. And how can we build trust with a stranger or someone we've only met very briefly? Maybe at a networking event, we've got the appointment, we turn up and away we go. And then another style is an agenda statement where you might have sent an agenda before the meeting. Thank you very much for agreeing to see me. Here's a proposal on the meeting and how we might do that. There are different styles for different meetings and different organisations, and also for yourself, depending on how you want to play that particular meeting. Okay? So that's where we're going with it today. And we're going to start, now you've all got manuals in front of you. I'm just going to draw your attention to page 2 in your manual. This is a very key idea. You see here on page 2 it says, what I sell and what people buy. So I'd like to ask you, first of all, and hopefully everyone's got a pen, I hope everyone's got a pen, write down what you sell. And there may be a number of things you sell. Write them down. What is it? It might be, in your case, if you're in the recruiting business, it might be, I sell clients to use us as their agents. I sell candidates to take the job that I suggest, or whatever it might be. Okay, so what do you sell? In some cases it might be services, it might be a product, it might be a range of services, it might be a range of products. You might have some consulting in what you do. There could be a range of things on the service side, on the front side. Try and get down a number of them, and then we'll look at actually what people buy. So let's start with what we sell. We're not talking about I sell trust here or I sell goodwill. We're talking about something people would pay money for, okay? Like a physical product or an actual service. That's what I want us to go for, something very concrete. So for example, in my case I could say I sell leadership training, I sell sales training, I sell presentation skills training, I sell human relation development training, okay? I sell workshops, I sell seminars around certain topics. There's a whole range of things I could actually nominate. That's the sort of thing we're looking for. Okay, how are we doing? We're doing too badly? All right, now, have to take that and flip it around from a client's point of view. What are they buying? So I said, for example, I sell sales training. That's what I sell, sales training. But from the client's point of view, what do you think they're buying?
Knowledge.
Skills development.
Knowledge, skills, what else?
Confidence?
Confidence, yeah.
Improved sales.
Yeah.
Employee motivation.
They're buying increase in revenue through sales. I sell sales training, which is a tool. They don't care about the tool. They're buying sales training so they have increased sales. I'll give you another example, and I'll pick, you see this all the time, say a drill, electric drill. And if you go down to the hardware store and you see the whole range of drills there, and the salesperson will talk about, oh, this is a cordless drill, or it's got a cord, or it's this much weight, or, you know, 70 grams or 70 kilos, it's got this many speeds, or one speed, or it's this colour or that colour, or it's got, you know, interchangeable heads, or it can do this or that, it can reverse, it can go forward only. All of that stuff is what they sell. But what do I buy?
A whole.
Yes, exactly. I'm buying a hole. I don't care about the drill. I've got a need for a hole somewhere. It might be a hole in metal. It might be a hole in brick or concrete or wood or any other surface you can think of. And therefore the actual drill type may vary according on that need. But I'm not buying the drill. The drill is a tool. So taking this idea of I sell sales training, but clients buy increase in sales by their sales team. You know, I sell drills, but actually the client's buying the whole. Think about what you're selling and look at it from the client's point of view. And what are they buying? Try that. Now, on the other column, fill out what the client's actually buying. And by the way, is this a bit hard? It's not so easy, is it? It's very easy to put down what we sell, but when you've got to flip it around and look at what the client actually buys, that's a little bit harder. You've got to think a bit deeper about it. So, what gives the contrast between what you sell and what they buy?
The problem is, everything I wrote down for what they buy is originally what I wrote down for what we sell until you said we couldn't use esoteric things. So, I changed what we sell to filter separators and cleaning equipment.
Okay.
But what they buy is compliance, lower costs of operation, longer equipment life, safer operations, safer and cleaner environments, and technical expertise and reputation for our company.
Yeah. So a filter separator, what does a filter separator do?
Well, that depends upon what type of filter separator, but a filter separator generally removes particulate matter from a liquid fluid stream and then separates two different types of fluids or more than two different types of fluids. So oil and water would be a good combination.
So they're looking for, in a word, I guess, something like some degree of purity or some degree of certainty,
Essentially our branding.
right? Some degree of certainty about what's going to come out of that separation, right? So that becomes, you mentioned compliance, it has links to that. So if you're not getting, say there are things getting into a particular a food product, for example, the filters are not cleaning it out, you've got an immediate problem. Brand, everything gets killed straight away because the filter has not done its job. So they're not actually buying a physical filter, they're buying brand protection. They're buying compliance, they're buying regulatory safety from the regulator type of thing. It just goes a bit deeper than that. Okay, let me try it here. What do you got?
Lots of stuff. I guess more like
Well, just give us one new thing you sell and what do they buy? Give us the contrast.
cloud services,
Cloud services, what you sell.
and then
What are they buying?
easy management and improved infrastructure.
Yeah. The cloud does that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You've got access from anywhere. You've got security, because the server's not one server,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've got backup. You've got virus protection. there's a whole raft of things in that whole cloud service that are just beyond the cloud itself.
Yeah.
I mean, how about you?
Yeah, for what I sell, I put down packaging materials.
Yeah.
And-
Sell packaging materials, what do we buy?
And people buy better profitability.
Hmm.
So that's one that I put down.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I put down leadership development programs, is
Yep.
what we sell.
And what do they buy?
Is improved leaders who will take the organisation forward.
Yeah. They buy an increase in the ability of their company to move forward and be competitive in an increasingly difficult market, don't they? Because their leadership group is differentiated and more powerful than the competitors. Their team is better than the other teams, therefore they're going to win. That's what they're actually buying, isn't it? Yeah. How about yourself?
They make blood testing equipment and biochemistry reagents,
Mm-hmm. And so what do people buy?
tools for physicians to diagnose disease, and confidence that they're doing that accurately and quality.
They're buying patient safety and health. Because the blood tests are accurate, the blood tests are not compromised. They can make a judgment based on that information and match it with a drug that's going to work for that particular problem, right? So that's in a way, it's a life and death thing. If you get that wrong, people die from that stuff, right? How about you?
So I wrote down business personnel solutions.
Yeah.
That's what we sell, and then what my clients are buying are experience and technical expertise.
Yeah. They're buying an improvement in their business.
Yes.
For most businesses, the people are the key. And if the people are really working well, the company will work well. So you're buying them that improvement in the business through the improvement of the people that they're recruiting. Yeah. It makes it a bit tough for you two guys, doesn't it? Displaying the whole team right now, right there.
She's trained me well.
There you go.
She's trained me well.
Okay. So the point here is, all right, we've got one list there on what we sell, and we've got one list on what we buy. Question. Which list should we be using, and which set of words and language should we be using when we meet the client? What they buy. Now, what do most salespeople talk about?
What
What we
they sell.
sell.
Exactly. They talk about, it's the features. Oh, this is so many milligrams or mils or whatever. It's got a certain weight. It's got a screw cap. It's plastic. You can drop it. It's all about the feature. And then sometimes some salespeople maybe even talk about the benefit, but they really talk about the application of the benefit, right, or the evidence. Then they get to that stage. So we go back to that first initial meeting I spoke about with the client. They're a stranger to you, you're a stranger to them. They're distracted. You're trying to get into their head with some new information about what you do. So we have some pleasantries, and then we try to get into opening up the conversation. So we've got to have in our mind, before we even start that, what are some topics that are going to be stimulating for that client? Now, interestingly enough, we have another section here where we try and do that a little bit scientifically. And this is actually on page 3 of your manuals. And this is what we call the client interview. So, you asked your client, existing client, not the new client. Before you go and see the new client, spend a bit of time with a couple of existing clients you've been working for over some period of time. They know you. And you ask them, what did you like about our service or product? Welcome.
Very great.
Come on in. How did you apply it? How were the results? What was the return on investment from doing all of that? What we're looking for here are, what do you think? Why would we do that? Ways in, yeah. But specifically, what are we trying to find here?
Touch points with your customer that are important to their bottom line.
Yeah. If we are dealing with a client in the same industry, or a client who's potentially going to have a similar need, and an existing client feeds us the things they like. They might even feedback some things they don't like. That's possible too, right? Would that be valuable?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And then how they applied it, would that be useful?
Yes.
Because have you ever had this experience that you've actually sold something imagining they're going to apply it this way, and yet they took it beyond that?
Yeah.
And you go, I never thought of that. Isn't that interesting? Who would have guessed? Okay. Would it be useful to know there are other applications beyond what you thought were possible? How are the results? Would that be useful to reference to a new client?
Yeah.
If they said something really irritating like, well, who else has done this and what happened? Would it be useful to have an answer?
Absolutely.
Well, how would you have an answer? You probably need to have that discussion at some point. And then, what's the return on investment? That's also very critical, right? So, what we're talking about here, and we're not going to go through this process now. This is something more homework for you. But go to an existing client and ask them these questions. And you might find that there are residual problems that you didn't know about. If you're in sales, are you the only person in the company who interacts with the client? You might have a whole delivery arm that actually supplies the service. In my case, as a president of a training company, the delivery is done by my trainers. I don't do all the delivery. I'm not in every classroom. How do I know what's going on? The trainers do the delivery. If there was a problem, do you think I'd want to know about that? Absolutely. But sometimes the client may not bother to tell me. Doesn't mean you have to interview every client, but it'd be useful to find out if there were any problems, because you could probably fix them on the spot. Or promise to do something about it. If they're really happy, they might become a testimonial for you for other clients. You really liked our service, I'm really pleased to hear that. Sometimes I meet new clients and they'd really like to talk to someone to get a bit of a reference, you know, an independent view. Would you mind if sometimes if they came up, wouldn't happen very often, because not that many people ask, if I just gave them your number, you could talk to them? Yeah! If they're happy, they're going to say, yeah, aren't they? They're probably going to go, yeah, I'll do that for you. If they're happy with your service, right? Get a referral, same idea, right? Ask for more business. Would that be a bad idea? Now, you're interviewing the client, setting yourself up for the new client, but it wouldn't be a bad thing if they're, while you're there, to say, you know, now that you've got all this new business, is there anything else you need? And often there is. And often they're too busy to ask us because they're too busy dealing with all this new business they've just generated. They know they've got to do something, but they're up to here, no time, and I'll get to that. But you turn up very helpfully, and you go, well, you know, I can maybe help you with this. Oh, yeah, that's right, good. Can we get on to that? Great. And then just thank them. Thank you for the insight. It becomes very powerful. So we're not going to go through this now, but it is a very good idea. Now, here's a question. How many salespeople do you think ever bother to go back to an existing client and ask anything like this?
Less than 1%.
Sorry?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%, exactly, exactly. Why? Because they're not trained. They're not properly led. They don't have the consciousness. What's another reason?
They're on the next sale.
They're on the next sale? What else?
Afraid of bad news?
Sorry?
Afraid of bad news?
Yes. Yes. They're worried that they go back, they might suddenly get a whole bunch of problems they have to resolve. You know? Is it an emotional business, sales?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it a nightmare roller coaster at times?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And naturally, as salespeople, we try to protect ourselves from the dull thud of the door closing on our foot or in our face, right, as we're being rejected. So the less bad news we have, thank you very much, the more we like it. So it takes a certain amount of, you know, guts and confidence to go back in there and ask these questions. But if you're a professional, you take the lumps and you go back in there and you find out, because you know there's probably some things happening here that I can use for my next sale, and there's a problem with this client, I better fix it, because whose brand's getting killed in the market? Whose brand, do you think?
Theirs.
Which one? Their company or their own?
The company, they're both, I guess.
Both, yeah. The company brand's getting murdered and their personal brand's getting murdered. Now, we said before, within I think 2 seconds, we're making assumptions about people. Well, you know, we are quick to judgment. So if we see someone who looks very competent, we assume the other 10,000 people working for that company are also competent, don't we? If we see someone who looks very lacking in competence, we assume that everybody in that whole organisation is a dud, don't we? Right? We're quick to judgment, not about just the person, the whole thing. So this initial impression or dealing with problems, if you've already got an existing client, is a pretty good thing to do, because it could be killing your company brand, it could be killing your personal brand. And in sales, is our personal brand fairly critical?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got to work on that. So we're not going to go through that, but I just leave that there as a template for you to think about what you can do. So we're going to move on to this acronym here. Easy to remember, CARES. Can you remember CARES? And the C stands for, it should come up here, compliment. Now, I think you mentioned before about you've got a beautiful office or something like that in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
What's the danger of saying something like that? What's the danger of complimenting them on their office?
They didn't decorate it, they don't like it, they just moved into it. There's any number of reasons that they have a disconnect with their office that
What else is a
be
problem?
associated with.
Yeah, there are definitely problems. What else is a problem?
Maybe sounds like a kiss ass.
Hmm?
Sounds like you're just kissing their ass.
That's a problem too?
Sounds like they have a lot of money. They decorated their office, it looks
Yep.
very nice.
Yep.
Oh, you guys have a lot of money.
Yeah. You frivolously spent it on this ridiculously gorgeous office. You should give us some of that, right? What else is another problem? Do they get visited by many salespeople, do you think?
We probably get the same compliment
Yeah.
over and over again.
Exactly. You turn up, and there's a company here, is a client of ours, they just new office recently, and I went to see them, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful office, and it's got this wonderful moss wall feature. That's one of them. It's not the only one, but that's one of them. Now, you can imagine if you're the salesperson turning up and you're saying to the host, "Wow, look at that moss wall!" You know, how many times do you think they've heard that? Every single time. So you're just another schmuck salesperson turning up with the same line everyone else has got. So when we talk about compliment, what would be a better idea with a compliment, do you think? What would be a smarter idea with a compliment?
Probably try to make it personal. Like I wouldn't compliment on the office. Like you always say, "Oh, that's a beautiful tie. I love that tie."
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
Could be, I really like the professional way your secretary set up this appointment or something.
Yeah. What else?
I guess according to the secretary, that you can compliment on the good looks of your secretary.
I don't think so.
You got a hot secretary. Do you reckon she's available after this meeting for lunch?
What time's she off work today? That ought to work real well.
The first impression is going to be really strong. What else do we do? We're thinking about a compliment. So what would work as a compliment, do you think?
Something about the company, about what they've been doing recently,
Yes.
what they've been involved in.
Yes. Something that other salespeople are unlikely to say. Something unique. For example, in the case of the moss wall or the beautiful new office, you could say something like, this is a beautiful arrangement here. I'm sure this has had a big improvement on morale, or a big improvement on people's feelings about working here. Has that been the case? So you're tying the compliment to something that's relevant beyond just what a great moss wall you've got. Okay. So yes, you should look for an opportunity to pay a compliment, but not the obvious compliment. Not the done to death compliment. They go, yeah, another moss wall compliment, big deal, you know. Boring. Now, the second one is ask a question. Why would this be helpful? Why would you want to get into asking a question?
You're engaging them.
You're engaging them.
Starting to build rapport.
Starting to build rapport. Why is that? How does that work?
Well,
How does asking a question relate to that?
because when they're talking about something that they have
What do salespeople love to do?
talk.
Talk! And talk and talk. Where should the talking be done? Right? Client. So if you start with asking a question and then you shut up, you're engaging them, you're getting them to do the talking, and guess what? Is there value in what they're telling you probably?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're picking up incredible amounts of information that you're never going to know about. You know, like I'm in the training business. Okay? If I walk into that beautiful office and I say, oh, I guess this must have really lifted your engagement levels since you built this new office here. Well, you know, we just did a survey last year and they were pretty bad. I'm in the training business. Is that good news for me? That's fantastic news for me, right? Because I've got a solution for that, right? You're looking for that type of thing. The R here is referral. That means someone referred them to me, that they know. You know? I really appreciated Eric giving me your contact details to set up this meeting. We had this conversation and he thought that we might be helpful. Now, I'm drawing on Eric's relationship power with that person. So my trust level is going to be high, isn't it? Because Eric is a trusted person, and if Eric recommends me, then I become a trusted person without doing anything. So if you've got a referral, that's powerful. You want to get that out there straight away. And then I've got here, educate. Now, this is having something in your little handy-dandy bag of tricks there, right? We're pulling some information out that is educational about their industry, about their business, maybe about the competition that they don't know about. So this means that before you get to the meeting itself, you've done some research, you've collected some statistics somewhere. Like, for example, in the last 20 years, the numbers of 14 to 24-year-olds in Japan has halved. Now that's a statistic, it's true, and you can use that in a lot of different industries and say, you know, in the last 20 years, the number of 14 to 24-year-olds has halved. Is that having a big impact on your ability to recruit new talent? As the war for talent becomes more intense, as there are less people to recruit. Killer question, right? Killer question, right there.
Thank you.
So you're putting together some information, you've made it a question, and now you shut up and they tell you the answer. That's a pretty good situation to be in. So what I'm getting at here is, we talked before that most salespeople prepare nothing, do no research, come empty-handed. This is Japan. What does everyone in Japan do? They bring omiyage, right? They bring a gift. In this case, it's not a physical gift so much as it's an information gift. So look for surveys or information about the industry or that business that you think might be relevant, and have that in your little kit bag there, storage bag of things you can bring out. Now, I use a database called Twitter. I never read Twitter, by the way. I'm too busy. But when I see something, I tweet it to my followers who I have got no idea who these people are. And most of them are living in America. I'm never ever going to meet them in my entire life. But anyway, I put it in Twitter. It's 140 letters. I usually get it in there. So when I want to go back and find something, I just go into my tweets and start scrolling through them, and there's the statistics are there. Oh, that's one on men and women, or that one's on such and such. Things I can pull out. It's a very handy thing to have because, first of all, you tweet something useful to your followers, and secondly, you've got a bit of a database there, things you can pull out very quickly. It's not sortable. It's not great in terms of a database per se, but it's pretty easy. Boom, boom, boom on the phone, done. So, looking for something that you can add value. And the last one here is to start. This is something that is really shocking, that is going to change their industry or change their business that they may not even know about. There may be some trend or some new technology or some advancement or some direction that is actually going to change their entire business. Or something you've read somewhere, startling. And this is great for breaking through all of that competition, isn't it? So the point here is, we need to have this stuff designed before we get there. Right? So it doesn't matter they've got a beautiful office with a moss wall or they don't have a beautiful office with a moss wall. You've already got a complement to work on. You've thought about something that you can then use. So what I'd like to ask you now is design them. You've got that acronym, CARES, complement, ask a question, referral, educate, startle, something you remember in your head, design them. Just take a few moments and come up with a sort of all-purpose complement. Come up with an all-purpose question. Referral, think of someone that could be a referral for you. Try and, this might be hard, right? To come up with something that would educate someone about their industry. This might be even harder. That's okay. Because that tells you something, doesn't it? It says you are not geared up for building, in the first 2 seconds, rapport with this person through getting their attention. And this is a good chance to think about that and have a go. Have a go, see how you play it out. Let's get some things down.
You call these attention getters. We're just thinking of a sales meeting which might last 45 minutes. I would say at some point in the meeting, I've done all of these things, but not necessarily as an attention getter. That would say they've all been covered. So would you not consider this as part of the natural part of the sales process? Or?
Yes, it could be. But what we're looking for here is that first couple of seconds of determining that first impression. So if I come into your office and I say, I love your blonde hair.
I'd be so happy.
Oh, I love it. My wife needs the name of your hairdresser. I just love the way they've done that, you know. You might go, who is this schmarmy sales guy here, you know, doing the blonde hair thing with me, you know. Once he's not even wearing a wedding ring, what's he talking about? He's got his wife, you know. You might be very doubtful about that, right? You might be doubtful about that. What you're looking for here is something that's going to be very viable in any situation to break through attention. Once you've got their attention, all that other stuff comes out later. This is those first few stages to set it up, to get to uncovering what they need. In our second session in the series, we're going into that part about how to dig out what they actually want and what they need. But before we do that, we need to get their permission to go forward. So let's start with cutting through all the distraction, all the competition in the head for us, with us, get their attention. Yes?
Could you help me define the, I'm not quite sure how education and this startle stuff is not the same thing.
Oh, yes, it could be the same thing. Could easily be the same thing. It's just one might be more dynamic than the other. One could be a piece of information in which you go, okay. The other could be a piece of information. You go, oh, really? That's the difference. Something that just you didn't know that. You know, I just heard that so and so bought so and so. Oh, really? Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Or I just heard the diet is going to take depreciation from 9 years to 35 years.
Yeah.
It becomes very important for a business model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just heard that there's not going to be a snap election. We're actually going to go from 8% to 10%.
Just suck it to them.
So, yeah, the difference between educate and startle is probably same information, just the degree of impact would be different.
So on this page, it's not page.
This is on, we're on page 4.
So of these page words, make one sentence of these.
No,
5
you
points.
try and come up with one compliment, come up with
For
one
each of them.
question. Yeah, just this is an exercise for yourself
Okay.
to realise that you need to plan. You need to have this stuff ready before you even get to the meeting. And here's a framework to do that. So you've actually, you may or may not write it down, but your brain is going, okay, I'm going to have this compliment ready when I get there. Now you get there and it may not work, but your brain is already tuned up for a compliment. Well, I'm going to ask this question. That question will probably work any location, any situation, because it's an all-weather, all-purpose question type of thing. Something that travels easily. I mean, in my business, training business, we A to Z of companies and industries, There's no commonality across them. So I've got to have something that's really all-purpose. It can't just be singular. So this is something that you'd use before the meeting. Today you're doing it cold, I know that, so it's hard. But it's more about giving you a structure. It's more about walking into a meeting and going, I've got 5 things here that I can kick this meeting off with to build a good impression. I build a good first impression. I'm going to pick one of these because they're all 5 are ready to go. Depending on the circumstances or the mood or how it plays out, you'll go for one or another. But you've got all 5 ready to go. That's the point. I mean, referral's probably a bit hard because you may not necessarily have referrals. At least 4 out of 5 you can have ready to go. If you've got a referral, even better. And a referral could even be something a little bit abstract. It could be, without mentioning the name of the competitor, I've actually been working with one of your competitors, and they told me that recently the regulations have changed and they've made this particular aspect of their business very, very difficult. How's that going for you? So it's a sort of referral. And in a way, if you're working for their competitor, it says that you've got something of value in their industry. And it says that you know something about their business. Not necessarily their company, but about their business. So, again, that's a little bit, it's a subtle thing. It's a subtle thing, but you can still use it, even if you don't actually have a real referral from an actual person. And they might ask you, well, who is it? You say, well, I'm sorry, I can't divulge that because of privacy laws. But they'll soon know whether you're making it up or not. And never make it up, because you'll always get caught out. First rule there. How are we going? We get through that? Did anyone have any good educate or startle examples? Yeah, please.
Well, this is some kind of information that I got, like Japanese banks won't give loans to NEC, and their stocks are incredibly low. So something big is going to happen to them.
Okay. I'd call that a startle, actually. Yeah.
For educate, I normally talk about global trends, market sizes, which parts of Asia are growing. That gets them thinking a bit about exports and opportunity. In startle, I normally use a video, a video which is interesting, a very short video, and that gets them to open up as well.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Paul?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's educate or startle, I've got one for each, but did you know leaders with below average levels of emotional intelligence lose 4 times more employees annually?
That could be either, couldn't it? Depending on how they react to it. Yeah, nice. Anybody else have any educator startles yet?
Japan ranks 39th out of 45 countries globally on TOEIC scores, and fewer people are traveling overseas to English-speaking countries.
Yeah. Then you can draw an implication from that. Any others? All good. Yes.
70% of the damage caused to your equipment is caused by material degrading, and 20% of that is corrosion, but 50% of it is caused by contaminants in the fluids that are flowing through it.
Right. Yeah, which is perfect for your business.
I can stop that.
In the last month, due to the extreme low cost of energy in the United States, high energy consumer manufacturers like chemicals and pharmaceuticals are moving in the United States. I can name 3 countries that are not yet disclosed, but they will be disclosing within the next 60 days that they're moving to the United States.
Wow, okay, great. So my point is, this is a framework for you. And you can remember CARES, right? It's simple, C-A-R-E-S, CARES. Have something in your mind to break through their distraction in those first few seconds. Because this is after the pleasantries, right? Thank you very much for seeing me. Boom, straight into one of these. That's the next thing out of your mouth. Right, so you're setting the mood. Now we're going to go on to a credibility statement. This is very, 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 very handy.
Greg, I wanted to ask you one thing before you move on.
Yep.
I have a question that I usually ask to customers, and I wanted to know what people in the room think about this question. And it's my question for them. What keeps you awake at night? That's kind of one of my go-to questions. Like, what is their real pain point? What's their real worry?
Would you ask that question in the first few seconds of the meeting?
I don't know. Probably not. Probably not in the first few seconds, but I'd probably build to it.
Yeah. And I think, I'll just short circuit this a little bit. Yeah, I think you need to ask that question, but I don't necessarily know that that's probably an attention getter at the various seconds of the meeting, because we talked before that I gave the example of Japanese clients before you, and Japanese clients often don't think their job is to answer your questions. Right? They think their job is to drill your presentation full of holes and critique it for you. So what we're going to here is leaning towards getting permission to ask questions. That's what the rapport build part is. Get their agreement that we can ask them questions. And that would be a great question after you've gotten that permission. If we're, particularly with a Japanese company, and you're in the first few seconds of the meeting and you hit them with that one, I reckon that would be a tough one. That would be a tough one. Sorry?
I said it does the reverse of what you want it to. It doesn't create rapport, it shuts them down. It creates suspicion, who are you to ask me this, and I don't even know you.
Yeah. Yeah, particularly Japanese buyers, they tend to be very hard to get them to open up, because they're like, their mental framework is, oh yeah, primitive, We're all from Missouri, Show me. This is not the Missouri thing, show me. I think that's a show. So, the credibility statement, we're looking for the general benefits of what you do. Just the general benefits. Then some specific results that you've achieved for other clients, without necessarily naming them. Suggest that you could do the same thing for this company, and then the transition is, may I ask you a few questions? That's where we're going with this, right? So you see here, we're on page 5. Thank you. And we're also on page 7. So, if you look on page 5, we're talking about, think about what are some general benefits of your company and your service. What are some general benefits? So what would be some general benefits? What would be some general benefits of your company?
Single point of contact for information delivery, network data center.
Okay, so that's a general benefit that you provide. All right. How about for you guys? What would be a general benefit of what you do?
Our consultants have technical expertise with 10 years in their given field.
Okay, general benefit. Okay. Eric, how about in your case?
Benefit of the service I offer, or my particular?
Particular comes a bit later. This is just general. Generally, what your company does.
So the benefit of of the thing that I'm selling. Okay. So the benefit is the ability to get a stronger idea of what differentiates your company and can create a better understanding of that.
Yeah. So you need to design for this first part here, the general benefits of what you do. Okay. Dale Carnegie training achieves behaviour change, which leads to higher outputs. That's a general statement. An example of this, now we get this, would be, we worked with a very high-end Italian fashion brand, trained all of their entire sales team in Japan. They are reporting 30% increase in sales. Maybe we could do the same for you. In order to help me understand that, may I ask you a few questions? You see how that works? So have a go, please, and design, looking at page 5 and page 7, what are the general benefits of what you do are. Try and come up with some evidence around some specific things that you're able to do. And you may not necessarily name the company, because there's all sorts of competitive and privacy arrangements that you may not be able to do that. That's okay. You don't have to go that deep. Or if you can, mention the company name, even better. Make a suggestion, and then go into the transition to asking questions. Is everyone clear on that? Could you have a go at designing that? And then we're going to practice it with each other. All right? So let's have a go.
We call this our elevator pitch.
That's exactly right. And it could be on the phone. It could be in an email. It could be face-to-face. Exactly. It's very short, you know, you're talking 30 seconds here. Remember, we are trying to get their permission to spend the next probably 20 to 30 minutes interrogating them. To really, truly, sincerely understand their needs and their wants, and to make a calculation whether we can actually help them or not. But to get to that point, we've got to build that rapport, build that trust, break through their distraction, break through all the barriers, all the skepticism, all the doubt, before we get to that point. Okay? So this is how we do that. Let's think about that. So this is not a selling statement. Okay? It's not designed to sell. It might reference some things you found out about that person or the company that you know they're interested in from your research. You might wind that in there. I mean, there are probably many, many things that you've had specific results with. You may choose a specific example that really resonates with that company from your pre-meeting research, and make that the example that you're going to choose, of the many you could choose. For example, if I was another fashion brand, or a high-end luxury brand, I would use that example. If I was with a software company, it may not be very relevant. So I'd be looking for a software example. And you're focusing on benefits, not facts. You get plenty of chance to prove the facts later. This is only the benefits. And then, short. Just short. Very short. Very brief, very concise, very clear. And as Linus mentioned, you know, this could be, it could be your elevator pitch, it could be in your marketing, you know, in your prospecting on the phone, trying to get meetings, set up the appointment. Could be the elevator pitch at a networking event. It's that type of, you know, the classic, oh, what does your company do? Oh, we make air filters, or we make filters, you know. You'd probably say something a bit more exciting than that, right? This is what that more exciting thing would be, actually. So you're working on a general statement, a specific result, we said before, make the suggestion, transition. Okay. You all good? Are we going? Do we have a volunteer to give us an example of something you've come up with? Yeah? Yeah, please. Lead us off.
So
Imagine we're the client, go straight into it.
client's major airline, they're a major 737 operator. thank you for having me here. One of the things that Paul brings to the table for you is 67 years of highly technical solutions in the aviation industry. It's the filter area that we started in, and it's what we've done throughout. For example, in the bleed air soot, there's a known bleed air soot problem, and the engines that you're operating, and we've come up with solutions that increase the I can't read my own handwriting. Increase the equipment life and that system by 30 to 35%. And they also eliminate a fairly well-known issue between the fifth stage bleed air valve and the bleed air regulator that could create a flame-out situation in your engines. Okay. There's a possibility that these problems are going on in your engine fleet. If I can talk to you a little bit about your engine fleet, I'd really like to understand whether or not you're experiencing these issues.
Let me just bring it back up to the formula. So you had the general benefit, specific results, suggestion, and now you're going to ask some questions. I think if you could take that and cut it by about 9/10, it'd be really powerful. And this is our challenge, is to get this down to real bare bones, brief. Okay, so that is great content. Tighten it right up. So it just flows out very, very briefly, because all you want is this: permission to ask questions. That's all you want. Because once you get that, then you'll find out everything you need to know as to whether you can actually serve this client properly or not.
So, something to the effect of, we've got 67 years of experience removing contaminants. Your competitors have seen 30 to 35% improvement with our products on their aircraft. I'd like to explore the possibility with you of your aircraft improving by this much.
May I ask you a few questions to know if that's possible or not? You need that last part, right? Okay, let's work into pairs. I'll be your partner. Okay, so we've got even numbers. So find a partner and try the flow. Now, when you are the partner, you have two jobs. You have, job number one is feedback what was good about what they presented. Job number two is to feedback how they can make it even better. There is no job to criticise it, all right? In Dale Carnegie, no critiquing, no criticising. What was good, how to make it better, that's the only feedback we ever give, so let's use that. In your pairs, go for it. How do we go? How do we do? Do we have any good examples here of someone who thought did that very, very well? Yeah, we've got an example here. Okay, can we get let's have a little example here. Who's going to be the client? Who's going to be the salesperson?
I will be the client.
You're the client. Oh. So you're saying his example. So you're the client, he's the sales guy. I mean, give us an example of how you did that. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's go.
Thank you for volunteering.
That's fine. She was very helpful, right? Straight on it. Very good.
So, okay. So thank you for your time. I would like to share with you about some of the benefits of our latest product, which is a paint replacement product. So one of the main benefits of this product is that we are able to reduce downtime by 50%. So some of our customers have told us that they are able to get their fleet onto the road by up to a week in advance. Right, so I'm not sure if that is applicable to your fleet, but perhaps if I can ask you a couple of questions, we can discuss some of the potential opportunities.
Okay, nice, right? Very soft, wasn't it? Phil and I were talking before. You're going to really grill them in a few moments with a lot of very intrusive questions about their business. And all of those sensitive areas where they've got trouble. Because that's where your solution lies, aren't we? So you want to be soft as butter in this part. So it's going to come across very low key. When you get down to, Dale Carnegie training, we really work on getting behaviour change to see an increase in output. An example of that would be recently some training for a very high-end Italian luxury goods company, and we got 30% increase in sales as a result. Maybe the hesitancy, you hear it? Maybe we can do the same for you. Would you mind if I asked a few questions? You're going to ask a hell of a lot of questions. But you just say, would you mind if I asked a few questions? So it's very low impact, soft sell, understated. All you want is them to say, yes, you have permission to ask me questions. Now, particularly if you're selling to Japanese buyers, if you don't get that permission, you are going to have a very hard row to hoe here, very difficult. I know myself, I've gone through this process, and they'll often stop me and say, no, I want to hear about what you've got to sell. Tell me about your offer. And I feel like saying, thank you very much for the green tea. I'm leaving now. Because really, after that point, it's almost pointless. Because you know where this is going to go, and it's not going to be good. So this is really critical to break through that and get them to say, yes, that's all you want. Okay, do you have any other examples? One more example? You have another good case study here anywhere? Yep. Here we go. Yep. All right. Who is the good client? Who is the good salesperson?
I was a good client. He was an excellent salesperson. You volunteered me. Now I get to do the same.
Come on. Well, let's hear it. Give us the case study. Let's go.
Okay.
As an example.
Yeah, we're selling a very specific technology to these blood testing labs. So we started DNA testing in this market and have stuck with it for the last 20 years, continuing to provide innovative products. We have partnered with all of your competitors for the last 20 years, providing them high-quality results. We believe that because of the cheaper solution that you've been using, that we could actually come in and introduce higher quality results that your physicians would be so much happier with. I'd like to ask you a few more questions here, if you don't mind, to explore those options.
Can we go back, keep that first part, the first two parts, and give you the second two parts with a little less certainty? We are not sure, because we have not asked you any questions yet. We are not certain, because we don't know your situation yet. Be a little bit more hesitant about what you could do. Maybe, because you don't know. You're certain because you're selling something. They're not certain because they're buying it, right? So just give me the last half, the suggestion and the transition again, with a little less conviction that you've actually got it. Make it more soft sell and more hesitant. Try that again. Give it to us again. Last two parts.
Because we know you're using competitor solutions right now, we think that we might be able to actually improve the results that you're providing to your physician. So would you mind if we ask you a few questions?
Nice. Okay, you hear the difference? When you're the salesperson, I know everything, I know what we can do for you, I've got it. When you're on the receiving end of that, what's your reaction? Doubt. Straight away, you've created doubt in their mind because they're not so sure about that. Because they don't know anything about you. They don't know the depths of what you can do. When you come across a little bit less certain, a little bit more hesitant, they feel more comfortable. We've had success with others in the industry. Maybe we could do the same for you. I'm not sure. But to help me understand that, would you mind if I ask you a few questions? Very hard to say no to that, the way that's pitched. So what it's like, yeah, we've got it, we know. They may doubt you. They may think, oh, I'm not sure about it. So just keep what you've got there and just take some of that strength out of it, because all you want is a yes. And then away we go. All right? Any questions about credibility statement? As you said before, elevator pitch, right there. Beautiful. 30 seconds, tops. Any other questions on that? Because we're going to move on to the agenda statement, the last one today. Which again is very, 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 very simple. Not difficult. So that's incredibly simple. Go over this one. Let me go over this one. There we go. So, agenda statement. Benefit of the meeting. This is on page 9. The benefit of the meeting. So what do you think that would be? You've actually asked for the meeting. You've asked for the meeting. You're going to roll out what the agenda might be. What would be the benefit of the meeting? What do you think? How would you explain why meeting this person is a benefit to them? How would you explain it? Any ideas here?
More information on how they can, like in my field, better their systems, you know, basically, you know, how they can improve on what they have right now and steps that they can do it, you know, thinking, you know, 10 steps ahead in the future rather than the short term.
Right. So the benefit, how would you say the benefit then? How would you express that?
Planning for the future rather than planning for right now, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it could be something like, thank you very much for meeting me today. I hope that in the time we have together, we can actually look at some of the long-term implications of where the industry is right now, where the business is going, and short-circuit any problems which might arise. So there's the benefit of the meeting. Go forward, short-circuit any problems which might come up. They're going to be happy to hear that. They're going to think, oh, that's good. There might be some problems I'm not even aware of. I'll be happy to hear what they are. So you're giving them something very positive. All right? So think about what the benefit of the meeting would be for you. And that's, we're not going to write it out now. This is your homework. But this is on page 9, you see. Again, in your preparation, what is the benefit of the meeting? You already know that before you get there. You've determined the benefit of the meeting is this and have it prepared. Then you think about the agenda. So the agenda, for someone like me, the agenda might be talk a little bit about Dale Carnegie training, because I may not know much about it. You know, talk about their situation to understand where they are now, where they would like to be, what's blocking them from getting there, and what some of the outcomes they can look forward to might be. And then you would open it up and say, do you have any other things you would like to add to that agenda? So you put down a couple that you want to talk about, and then invite them to add to it. So it doesn't seem like it's a one-way push agenda from your side. You've said, you know, talk a little bit about Dale Carnegie training, explore some of the issues you have now, where you want to be, what are some barriers, look at those, and then see if we might have some solutions on it. Very soft sell. Then, again, do you have any things you'd like to add to that? Yes or no? May I begin by asking a few questions to understand your current situation? Soft, soft, soft. Has everyone got the idea? Right, so the whole point about this is it's not an interrogation from their point of view because of the way you've set it up. But it is actually going to be quite detailed in finding out a lot about their organisation and all their problems. All the stuff they don't want out in the market, you're going to ask them. So it's a very sensitive area. But it comes back to what I said at the beginning with your sales philosophy. And I was talking about kokoro gamai. Kokoro gamai, what's your intention? What's your initial starting point here? If it's to serve the client for their interests, then knowing that information is positive because then you can find the right solution to help them. Or not. Maybe you're not the right solution and maybe you need to point them somewhere else. But if your intention is to serve the client, you will do that. So long as your intention is pure, then doing this works well. But it shouldn't come across as soft. So let's think about this in terms of the recap. We're doing rapport, which is the first part. We're going to try and do a client interview with an existing client to get some interesting feedback and a bit of context for this new client interaction. We're going to have our pleasantries. Thank you very much for seeing me. Thank you very much for your time. That's all done. Then either attention getters and then straight into the transition to the questioning. May I ask you questions? Or you might do this and then a credibility statement, or this and then an agenda statement. You can link them together. It'll really depend on the client and the situation. You might need the attention getter, and they start talking, and suddenly they're off. They're telling you about their problems right away. You don't need to ask permission. They're into it. Great. That happens a lot. Clients will, you're thinking, oh, what's your current situation? Then what are your problems? They go straight in, here are our problems. These are the issues I'm facing. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Wonderful. But if they don't, then get the breakthrough, the clutter, get their attention with the attention getter, have your credibility statement or your agenda statement ready to go, soft sell, ask permission to ask questions. Do you have any questions about anything we've covered tonight? Yes?
Just kind of looking around the room. There are three of us in here who sell a physical something.
Yep.
And if I caught everyone else correctly, everybody else is pretty much selling a service.
Yep.
Do you find that there is any significant difference in this model for those two different selling situations?
What do you think? Those who are in hard product, physical product, and those who are in services? Do you think there's anything in this framework that is going to affect either of those?
I think it's the same because I might sell a service, or we might sell a service, but I'm also the decision maker for buying the products that my company uses. And when I go through a meeting and someone's pitching me or trying to sell me something, they miss a lot of these things, and I have to ask questions. So
You're doing all the work.
Yeah, I think it's the same process.
For me, my opinion is that I think it's back to what you said about, what is the customer buying? So it's all tied down to the value that you provide. So, the value that you can create for the customer. So I don't think there's much of a difference. Because although it's a product, it's a service, at the end of the day, it's still the value that you provide.
That's a very good thing.
So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is a framework, and you notice in here, you notice how, if you ever look at a Dale Carnegie manual, it's like a Zen garden. It's not like a tropical rainforest with lots of text and lots of stuff in there. It's a Zen garden. It's got, fill out your compliment, fill out your referral, fill out whatever it is, design your whatever. For the very reason that it's a framework. And everyone's business and everyone's industry is different. So we try and get a broad framework that becomes rich by your input into your reality. So if it's a hard product, that's your reality, you'll fill it out a certain way. If it's a service, you'll fill it out a different way. And that allows you to be real with the situation and the client, but also reflect the difference between what you're doing and someone else is doing, but use the same framework. And you'll find that when we get to the next stage, where we're starting the questioning, it's the same thing. You'll find the framework is there, but it's not biased towards any industry or any particular hard or soft product. You got any other questions?
Yeah, Greg.
Yes. Yes, sorry, go.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, if you could take us to the stage before you've got the meeting, because the challenge I have is actually getting that first meeting, and often it's almost like the email equivalent of cold calling. I've got a contact on LinkedIn, a contact of a contact of a contact, so I suddenly have to send an email to somebody who I've never met before, knows nothing about me, and I find that quite challenging. I just wonder if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, what do you think? What of the things we've done tonight, what could Paula use in that situation? What would be very successful for her in that cold call situation? Referrals as well? What else?
Attention getters.
Attention getters might work, yeah. What else?
Genuine.
Yeah. Credibility statement would be good. You're explaining who you are. We're a leadership specialty training company. That's your general benefit, right? We've had a lot of success with clients getting their next generation leaders set up for growing the company. Maybe we could do the same for you, I'm not sure, but would you mind if we could get together for maybe 30 minutes and explore that possibility? Would you be available next Wednesday, or would Friday suit you better?
The choice.
Alternative choice, right? That is a credibility statement where the transition is different. The transition is not, can I ask you a whole bunch of questions? The transition is, can I meet you on Wednesday or Friday? Alternative choice. Because you can't sell over the phone very easily unless it's designed for that. Particularly in the business we're in, very hard. So you don't want to sell over the phone, you want to sell in person. But the credibility statement will give you that very briefly. This is what we do. This is what we've done for other people. Maybe we do the same for you. To understand that, I'd like to meet with you. Would you be available on this day or this day? Very tight. If you want to sell on the phone, prepare for trouble. It'll be hard.
Yeah.
I would never recommend, unless it's a product that's really designed for being sold over the phone, I would never recommend it. I would always say sell the appointment. Sell the date, day, time, that's it, and nothing else. And then when you get face to face, you run through this.
Would you advise your Japanese customers the same advice in terms of selling on the phone, or getting the meeting on the phone? Would that be the same script, or would it change a little bit for Japanese?
We teach this in English, we teach it in Japanese, it's exactly the same. When we come back and do this session in Japanese on the 27th, I think it is, it'll be identical to this in terms of content, you know, because these are frameworks.
Yeah. I'm curious to, you know, there are no Japanese in this room, but I'm curious to see what the reaction is from the Japanese clients. I'm curious to know, because from my own experience, I've got, I mean, it's not just training, but a lot of other things, you know, this will never work in Japan. You know, it works in America, it works somewhere else, it will never work in Japan.
I've always taught this to my Japanese staff for like the last 6 years. I teach the exact same processes, we just call it something different. My Japanese staff follow it no problems, never had issues. It works in Japanese and in English. What you say is different, and the language you use is different. The process works in either language.
And we find the same thing. These are structures which you fill out according to that circumstance, and linguistically, it's different. Like the way we roll it out is a bit different. We localize it. We've been here 51 years in Japan, so we get that same thing. Oh, this is American. We say, well, yes, it is American, but we've been localizing this over the last 51 years, so we don't even find that an issue anymore. You know. So for us, we can say we've been here 51 years, there's no issue. But the point is, it is no issue because, again, it's a Zen garden here. You know, it's very, just the bare bones of a structure, and then it gets filled out accordingly. And it's more around the industry, the business, and that particular person than it is necessarily about nationality. And in fact, in the second session, we'll very briefly touch on personality styles, which are much more important than ethnic background or linguistic background, much more important, and much more strong override. I think we have no time for any more questions, because I'm feeling Eric's piercing gaze on the side of my head here, telling me it's time to wrap it up. So let me thank you very much, and let me welcome you to session 2.
Session 2 is on December 15th in this room. It's at noon, it's not in the...
Actually, it is. The one on the 15th in the evening is Nihongo.
That's
And the
right.
lunchtime one is English. So if you want to do the both on the same day in contrast, turn up twice.
Be interesting.
We actually encourage that, and if you have any staff that you think would gain by this on our next Japanese session, please do so. And if you wish to know what the Japanese are thinking, come around. You'll get a very good dinner for 2,000 yen.
Anyway, thanks a lot for coming. I, for one, am very keen to find out what the next stage is. I'm on tenterhooks for the next one, so please come and bring all your friends and relatives and anybody else who needs to know how to sell to the next one on the 15th. So thanks a lot, Grant.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the ACCJ, allow me to offer you a certificate of appreciation.
Everyone, we're going to shower you with these things.
And not only, we've upgraded, not only do we give you a cup, we give you osembe that are logo with ACCJ.
Logo with the ACCJ, great.
And this happened to be an entrepreneur that, ACCJ sponsored this year.
Wow.
A young lady is making these upgrades, sembes for hotels. And now she's making it for ACCJ as well.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Again, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Leadership Japan series. If you found the program useful, then you might consider subscribing on iTunes and leaving a review. Remember to access your Dale Carnegie training free reports, white papers, guidebooks, training videos, blogs, newsletters, course information, plus much, much more, then go to japan.dalecarnegie.com.